Swagatam. Ramo Rajmanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje. Ramena Bhiyata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Rama Nasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham. Rame Chittalayasada Bhutame Bhora Mama Muddhara. Rama Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame. Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Varanane. Sri Ramanama Varanana Onnama Iti. Let's chant the Mahashtra Sutrani. Toyun, Rilruk, Ayong, Ayauch, Hayavarat, Lan, Yamagananam, Jabai, Gadadash, Jabagadadash, Kapha Chata Chacha Chatav, Kapai, Shashasar, Hal, Iti Mahashtra Sutrani. These are now the basic, the ABC of the language of Mahashtra Sutra. You have to know these, and also this, of course, the kaka, gakanga, chacha, jazanga, that order. You should also know the dictionary order, and also know this order of the Mahashtra Sutra. So that's why we chant in the beginning of every class. So last time we started with the Subandha Prakriya. Let's just review quickly what we did last time. Even before that, I'd like to remind you is that why the subandha is required. Why do you require these affixes, which in English we don't have this thing. We use prepositions for the most part, We say by Ramaha, on Ramaha, because of Ramaha. Say Ramas, I guess the only one they have is the Ramas with the S, apostrophe S. That is the Shashti Vibhakti. Otherwise, we don't have many Vibhaktis in English. The reason, but then what happens with that is that when you say, John is going to the forest and I'm speaking to John, or I see John. Now you don't know whether John is Prathama or Dvitiya. So that is a very big constraint, because if you want to compose in meter, it makes it very difficult, because you have to place John after the word I see John, after the verb. You cannot place him anywhere else. So it will be almost impossible to compose in meter, because the words are restricted to be placed in their specific places. When you add the subandha affixes, what happens is that no matter where the word is placed, you can tell the relationship of that word. Its role in the sentence is fixed by that vibhakti, that affix which is there. So that is, and since this is all a vak parampara, this is not writing, this is all memorizing and only a verbal parampara. So it's very important to be able to remember things. And the way to remember is to put them in meter. So that is the whole reason why we have this thing about, these vibhakti endings. And for the beginner, it's very frustrating, because you know the word Sita, but you may not know what is Sitaya or Sitayaha. So that's sort of very frustrating. So it's very important to understand, the role of the adjective or noun in the sentence. So these are indispensable for us to use. Without that, we cannot understand the meaning of the sentence. We might just recognize a few words here and there, but we don't know what the sentence means. Okay? So that is why we need these. In English, we may not need them. So let's go to the last time, just to do very quickly, is we started Subandha Prakriya. Now one thing I'll tell you at the beginning is that you may find it a bit frustrating that we require so many rules to just rewrite the Rama Shabda. Ramaha, Ramo, Ramaha, Ramam. So we require about, maybe 15, 20 rules for that. So you may think, well, we don't need all these rules. Just memorize Ramaha, Ramo, Ramaha, and you are done with it. Well, you can do that, but the usefulness of these rules is that when we take the next pratipadikam of Harihi or Guru or Sita or Nadi, whatever, we're going to use the same rules over there also everywhere. So these are the default rules that we used, we will use for all pratipadikams. And that's number one. The second thing is that the words which are used most in the language, they have the most exceptions, because the default rules don't work. Because of the usage, they get changed over time, and we don't have the straightforward rules don't work. They bring in many exceptions. Just like a dhatu kuru might be there, or the yushmat pratipadikam, asmat pratipadikam. They are the most used. So they will get transformed the most. So don't be frustrated by the fact that, you have so many rules for Rama Shabda. But if you learn these rules, going forward, it will be very easy, because when we do Guru Shabda, Hari Shabda, we may require one or two more rules. We can generate the whole table, So it's good to know the answer, you know, Ramaha, Ramo, Rama, it's good to know the answer. But it's also always good to run the Panini engine, so to speak. And not only that, when you get practice running the Panini engine, then you can also use that same methodology, the same structure, to do more difficult things afterwards, like particularly Tingantas, you know, which is going to be the next topic. So I don't want you to feel that, you know, you're wasting your time learning, you know, 10, 15 rules to learn Ramashabda. It is not like that. Because that's the way I felt also. When I was learning Ramashabda, I said, I don't need all these rules, you know. But it is very useful to understand the Paninian way, because it'll pay great dividends afterwards. Okay, so with that background, the first thing we did last time is we defined what is Pratipadikam. Pratipadikam meaning simply is the undeclined word, So why do we need to define Pratipadikam? Because these 21 affixes, which we saw even in the prior class, is throughout just some out. These 21 affixes, they can only be used after Pratipadikam. So you have to make, for example, if you take a dhatu, you cannot start adding these throughout just affixes after a dhatu. We have to first make sure we have a Pratipadikam. So we have to define what a Pratipadikam is. So our first target is to get to the word Ramaha. So all what we're doing right now, we did last time rather, was to build the base so we can derive the word Ramaha. See, this entire document, what we have right now, is simply a short version of Laghu Siddhanta Kaumudi. We are only taking the rules which we require for the Bhagavad Gita right now. And then hopefully that will be enough for you to get the, get practice, and then you can learn on your own, or we can add more rules as we encounter them. So that's all we are doing. So this is Siddhanta Kaumudi. The way it is organized is that, means that it is the various forms are derived. So we were trying to derive the form Ramaha last time. So for that we need to prepare some groundwork. We need some definitions, because without that we cannot use the rules. So the first one we looked at was, by the way, these after the Mahashya Sutrani, I would recommend that these 21 nominal endings, you know, given by this 412, su, avjas, amaut, shas, tabhyam, vis, nebhyam, jas, nasibhyam, jas, nas, os, ni, os, sup, these 21. And also the 18 Tinganta, which we'll see later on, these should be, if not memorized, at least kept handy at all times. They should be handy at all times, because every word in the language, every single word, without exception, ends in one of these 21 plus 18 equals 39 endings. So they are like the basic structure of the language. So if you know Mahashya Sutrani, you're done with that, then this is also something which is indispensable. And right now, at least these 21 nominal endings you can keep them handy, or if possible memorize them. And as you practice more, it will automatically be memorized. You don't have to put any effort for that. So we defined a Pratipadikam. Let's quickly review in 5 minutes what we did last time. It's Arthavadda Dhatu Pratyaya Pratipadikam. So this is Panini's way of keeping the language open to bring in new words later on. As long as the word has a meaning, that term has a meaning, and it is not just a bare verbal root, it's not an affix or just one ending in an affix, that's called Pratipadikam. Now, we have just said that it should not be one ending in an affix, but the next rule says the Krit Tadita Samasascha, that words ending in these affixes, they also create Pratipadikam. So the Krit, which is basically the verbal participles, the Krit Adhikara Ashtadhyayi from the Krud Ating. These are all what we call the participles, and they come after Dhatu. The Krit Pratyaya is the pre-Paninian style, where you use a form of the Dhatu Kru and make that a generic name for the class. That becomes a generic name for that class. The Krit is itself a Krit Pratyaya. So the Krit itself is a Krit Danta. So it has the Krud Ating is 3193. So actually Dhatu is Kru in there, but the Pratyaya, probably Krip, has been used. So Krud itself is an example of a Krudanta. So Krud Ating. So these affixes which come from 3193 to end of the third adhyaya, they will also create Pratipadikams. So that's important, because the moment you have Pratipadikam, you have to decline it. It cannot be used without declining. That's the other thing that is, they say, apadam na prayunjita. You cannot use any word in the language that has been declined or conjugated. It cannot be used. So you should say, we just say Rama, unless it's a vocative case and it's address, you cannot use the word Rama. It has to be the Ramaha, Ramam, or Ramena, Ramabhyam, or Rameshu. Unless you, of course, it's an address and it becomes Hey Rama. That's possible. So these are crude affixes. It's 3192 onwards. And then tadhitas also. Tadhitas is, they start from 4176. They create the secondary nouns adjectives, the 4176 tadhitaha. So these also qualify for pratipadikams, and they will have to be declined before they can be used. Like the word bhagavat. Bhagavat is a tadhita. Tadhitas are the affixes are called tadhitas, and the words ending in them are also called tadhitas. Unlike krudantas, but the affixes are called krut, and then we say krudantam, the word ending in a krut. But tadhita is not like that. The convention is to use the short form. So tadhita means a word ending in a tadhita, or it could be just the affix itself, tadhitaha. These are basically secondary nouns that are created. Then samasascha. So looking at the document, even samasas, why do we need to say that, samasascha? Because what would happen is that the Paraj Sutram said, arthavad adhatur pratyaha. And someone can argue if we take an entire sentence, that is arthavad. It's not a dhatu. It's not a pratyaha. It's not just ending a pratyaya. So that will become a pratipadikam. So to avoid that, Pani says, no, if you have a shabda samudaya, if you have a collection of words, that can become a single pratipadikam only if it is a samasa. So that's basically niyamartham. So collection of words, they can become a single pratipadikam, and to be declined, of course, again, if you have a samasa. Other strings of words, like a sentences, they will not become pratipadikams. That was the basic definition we did last time. And that opens up this entire, see, any definition Panini gives has some prayojanam. He's trying to use that definition somewhere. In fact, if you look at the commentaries, following every definition, they will tell you where this definition is being used. Where is it being used, pratipadikam? And also, just to refresh your memory, I like this book very much, which I told is on the link is there on the tiny URL. This book by Abhyankar professor, where he gives the definitions of all technical terms. Extremely useful book. Please use this book. Because what is pratipadikam? What is me? What is aap? What is sup? What is thing? You know, all these things are given in this extremely useful book in simple English. In simple English, and along with the references for the sutras also. So this it's a fantastic book. So keep it with me at all times. So you can, if you want to look up what is pratipadikam, you can look up in this book what is pratipadikam. And this is now available online. So just go there, just use this for 1 second. So pratipadikam will be there. So pratipadikam, and how it is, he will go through and how it is defined, and he keeps it short also, not too long. So not too long and not too difficult. It's in English, so you don't have to worry about too much. If you can, so let's see, pratipadikam. Pratipadikam. Okay, pratipadikam will be pratipadikam. Literally available in every word. So in every word, you have to every non-adjective you have to have pratipadikam. So he gives how the word is derived pratipadikam. He gives some history of that. So all that he gives, and he generally. See, he also gives the sutra required to define pratipadikam. So if you want to know where pratipadikam is defined by Panini, if it is defined, you'll find a sutra number here very quickly. If you want to quickly find a sutra number, you can come to this book, and actually any affix which is used, any tadhita affix, any kruta affix, they are all listed in this book. Extremely useful book. So he gives the sutra numbers, and of course, he was a great scholar. So there's nothing like wrong in this book. So I like to use books which there's nothing wrong, information is not there. Because otherwise, we don't want to get confused with wrong information. So that's why we always use good books like this one, or like Siddhanta Kaumudi, like Kashika, like Bhaimi Vyakhya, like Dhatu Vritti, So, okay. So we define pratipadikam, and so you can use this book. Then Miya Pratipadika. So that opens up this adhikara, which Panini says that these affixes which are given in the fourth and fifth chapter of the Ashtadhyayi, chapter 4 and 5, they can only be used after Pratipadikam directly, or if the Pratipadikam has taken this feminine affix ni or ap, then also you can use this. You have to use these supratyas. So ni ap Pratipadikaat. So that is the reason why we did this. We had to define Pratipadikam first. So that was the next step. And I hope you're getting a feel for the Ashtadhyayi topography by this time. Is the Adhikaraha Pratyaha Parascha runs from 311 to 312. So chapters 3, 4, 5. They only list all the affixes. They put the blocks in place. So Pratyaha Parascha, and that each Pratyaya comes Paraha. It comes after the word to which it is prescribed. And then when we saw this 412 Sutram, the prior class itself, this just these 21 endings, then we saw that they were in groups of 3 each. These are 7 case endings. 7 case endings. The 7 case very, very, very roughly are: the agent is the karta, then you have the karma, which is the object, then you have the karana, generally instrument, that's the third case. We'll see this in more detail later on. See, right now we are not asking that, why was the instrumental case used, or why was the accusative case used, why was prathama used. We are assuming that it is being used. We are deriving the form ramaha. Why prathama vibhakti is used over there, that we are not asking right now. That's a separate topic of karakas. And that comes in Ashtadhyayi 2.3, where Panini tells you, which vibhakti to use in what meaning. Okay. Right now we are assuming that the vibhakti is coming right now, and we're just deriving the correct form for that vibhakti. That's all we're doing right now. So these sub-endings are divided into these 3 times 7. So that in groups of 3 they are, groups of 3. So the fourth case is called the dative case for the sake of. Fifth is ablative, from that or than that. Sixth is sambandha. Sambandha means connection generally. And the seventh is the adhikaranam. So sixth is technically not a karaka, because the sixth case is only for making a connection with some other word. The other vibhakti is connected to some of the action in the sentence. The sixth case directly does not. So that's only does a connection with some other word. So that's what we saw the group. This is Supaha told us that these are in groups of 3. And then we started the prakriya. And the very first one was, of course, very easy. There was no new rule to be. We saw this Rama plus Su. Rama plus Su. We don't really need any. The only thing we did there was the Upadesha Arjuna Nasika It. We already know that rule because in a technical term, if you have a nasalized vowel, that's a marker. Upadesha Arjuna Nasika It. These It Sutras, they come in 132 to 138. Extremely useful, extremely fundamental. Any technical term, you have to first be able to remove the markers. They're only like a wrap, only like information. They only tags. So you remove the tag before you can use either the pratyaha or the agamaha, which is the augment, or the adeshaha. All these have tags on them because they have to pass information. Very efficiently information is passed. So 132, then we got Rama plus Su, and then we went back to our usual sandhi rules, because then we did sasajushoruho karavasanayor visajaniyaha. So that after doing all that, we got the form Ramaha. That's why we did the sandhi rules first, because they are even more fundamental. They are fundamental to any groups of letters. When letters come together, then the sandhi rules have to be applied. So we got the form Ramaha. So we didn't require any special rule to make the form Ramaha. But the next one, when we did Rama plus Au, when we did Rama plus Au, now here we required a, always you should apply the rules that you learned so far, and you should be fearless in that, because if you know the rule Vriddhirechi, the Vriddhirechi certainly has the condition satisfied here, because you have the avarna, so ad, Vriddhir, so echi pare, so between the and the au, you should have the ekadesha of the Vriddhi, which is au, so you get the form Ramau. But this again highlights the fact that just because you got the right answer, doesn't mean that you have applied the right rules. There might be some other rules which might come and intervene. So you have to deal with that because this is a computer program. It's going to keep on running until, no conditions are satisfied for any rule to apply. So there are these 4,000 statements in this program. So each statement comes and checks if it can apply. And if it can apply, then it's going to apply. It's going to come for application at least. So Vriddhirechi was our what we can say Varna Niyamaha, Samanya Niyamaha. So did not say it depends only on the Avarna being there and the H being there, then you do the Eka Desha between those two. But then what we saw last time was that there is a rule which comes and says that Prathamayoho Purva Savarnaha. Prathamayoho Purva Savarnaha. What is this one now? This one was telling us that so Prathamayoho means Prathama Dvitiya Yoho. When you have either the Prathama Vibhakti or Dvitiya Vibhakti, and it is a Ajadi Vibhakti, then what happens is that between and if you have the ak letter of the Pratipadikam there, then between the letter ak of the Pratipadikam, followed by this ach of the Prathama or Dvitiya Vibhakti, between them there is a Eka Adesha, which is Purva Savarnaha. So now if you look at that rule, then Rama plus Au we'll get the form Rama. Because between and Au, we would have to make the Purva Savarnaha, which will basically give us the wrong form. So now, by the way, how we didn't apply when we had Rama plus Su? Because we didn't have an Ajadi Vibhakti. We had Su, which means Anubandha Lope Sa only. That Sa was not Ajadi. So there we could not use Prathama Yoho because the Prathama Yoho should be Ajadi Vibhakti. So Prathama Dvitiya Yoho Achi Pare. We didn't have Achi Pare. So always check the conditions for each sutra and always ask why this rule wasn't applied here. Why didn't apply there? Make sure you understand that, why this rule was not applicable elsewhere that we already studied. So the reason for that was that we need a Aganta Pratipadikam and we need Ajadi Vibhakti, and that should be the Prathama Advitiya. Then between the Ak and the Ach, we get the Eka Adesha, which is the Pura Savarna Dirgha of the Ak letter, the prior one. So now, actually in Gita, if you want to look at an example for this, is in the 13th Adhyaya, we have the shloka which says, Prakritim Purushan Chaiva Vidhyanadi Ubhavapi. See, in the Gita, there are not that many dual forms where you can invoke this rule. Well, let me tell you one place which it is there. It is in the 13th Adhyaya. It says, Prakritim Purushan Chaiva Vidhyanadi Ubhavapi. Vikaranscha Gunanscha Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. So let's see. A little bit later. Here it is. Vidyanadi. This Anadi form it is that you have the Pratipadikam Anadi. Anadi plus I will put this in documents. This is number 19 shloka of chapter 13. Yeah, it is not easy. There are not that many examples of this in the Gita because you need a dual form, and dual forms are not that common. So if you take this chapter 13, verse 19, if you take, and there you have this situation where you have the Pratipadikam Anadi, and it's a dual form, and you had the Au. Actually, that is a accusative dual, but we're just the similar situation. So actually, it's out. It's the Dvitiya ending dual. But when you do that, now here, what you would have had, you would have had to use the equoenergy. But the rules we know so far, you could have had between the E and the Au, you would have had to use the equoenergy. But instead of that, what has been the correct form is Anadi. So that is where this Prathamayoho Purva Savarnaha, that rule helps us to get the form Anadi. So that rule is not useless. It is only not applicable in our situation with Rama Shabda. It is stopped. But here in this situation, you would have to use that rule. I think it's 61102. So because the out is a Dvitiya Vibhakti, it is Ajadi, and the word Anadi before that is ending in short E, which is Ak. E is an Ak letter. So between the E and the Au, we do an Ekadesha of the Purva. which is the long E with Janadi. So this is an example in Gita where that rule does work and it is not stopped by anything else. In Rama Shabda, though, what happens is that the next tool comes and stops the Prathama Purva Savarna. It says Nadichi, Nadichi. So these two rules may look to you kind of useless right now because one stops the other. So if you didn't know either one of them, you'd have been okay with doing Vruddhi Rechi. But you should know these because next time when you apply them, you'll ask the question, how come we didn't look at these when you're doing Rama Shabda? What happened there? So Nadichi tells us that Ad means when you have the Avarnanta Pradipadikam. So Ad is Panchami of the O. So means Avarnanta. And Ichi Pare. So when you have the Prathama Dvitiya Vibhakti starting with an Ich letter. Ich means what? Ich is all vowels except A. So Ach minus A is Ich. Because A Yundul Ruk, right? So if you remove the A, it becomes Ich. So is that satisfied for us? Always check that. It is satisfied because of the fact that we have Rama plus Au. So you have the Avarnantangam and you have the vowel which is not A. So these two, so this Nadichi is the one which stops the Pratamayoha Purva Savarnaha. And then you go back to Vruddhi Rechi. And finally you get the form Ramau. Get the form Ramau. So I think this is where we were last time. Just wanted to take it from there. So we got the form Ramau. Now, okay. Now we are going to the next form, which is the nominative plural, Prathama Bahuvachanam. Prathama Bahuvachanam. And as I told you, we have these su of just affixes in groups of 3. The su, au, just. Next pratyaya is just. So just is the next affix, you know. Also look at this, how Panini uses this just and the shas, by the way. They are both only us and us. There are a few reasons for that, because he wants to refer to them specifically. Because there are specific rules apply for shas only and not for just, which you're going to see one rule today which does that. So in order to distinguish them, Panini has to put an it letter on them so that he can distinguish between the just and the shas also. So even though if you remove the it letters, they are both us and us, we want some rules to apply only for the shas. So that has to be marked with something special. So we can use the rule only for that. So now we have Rama plus just. Rama plus just. So let's put that in the document, Rama plus just. And so this is the nominative plural. It is Rama plus just. The first thing, as I said to you, is that remove the it letters. Now that's the first sutram which I think we kind of used before, but I put in the document here. It is called Chutu. Chutu. See, Chutu says that if you have a pratyayadi cha varga letter or ta varga letter, that becomes an it letter. So the sutram Chutu is the first sutram for today. In the pratyaya jas, the ja is an it. So we need to remove that. We need to remove that. It's only it. It's only a marker. So Chutu says pratyayadyo, Chutu itau staha. So letter of the cha vargaha or the ta vargaha. The beginning of a pratyaya designated as an it. So that now, remember the pratyaya parasya adhikara goes from 311, 312 to end of 5th adhyaya. So we are within the adhikara. So the su of just are definitely their pratyayas. And the ja is of course a cha varga letter. So that will measure as a marker. So we get the in Gita example means Mamaka Pandava Shaiva. So Pandava plus just we had. So that made the ja as an it letter. So let me go to the section one more time. So 132 to 138 is a section that we always want to keep in mind to get these it letters. That's the first thing you should do when you encounter any technical term. So here we have Upadesha Nasika it halantyam vibhaktotu smaha, then other need to davaha shaf pratyasya chutu. So the pratyasya anuvritya is coming from 136 and 137 says pratyayadi cha varga ta varga. So that made ja as an it. So we applied 137. So applying 137, we can now get Rama plus us. Now, what we see is that by the rule halantyam, that ending sa should have been an it by the rule halantyam, because we saw that in a technical term, an ending consonant is a marker. Ending consonant is a marker. So now by that the ending sakara should be dropped by halantyam. We don't want that. We don't want that sakara to be dropped. So there must be something which is stopping that rule halantyam. By the way, one more thing I think which is obvious, but I would also mention to you, is that the last Sutram 139 says tasya lopaha. So all these its are removed, tasya lopaha. So the it is only a sanya, but 139 says tasya lopaha. Maybe I'll put that in document. So 13. We always use when we define it, we immediately use tasya lopaha and we remove that it letter by 139. So we don't want the sir to be an it, because we want to get the form ramaha. Then what can be done? So Panini now has to write some other rule to protect that sa, to not lose that sa. And that rule is the next rule, which says okay. Before we go there, that rule is actually this one, 134. Na vibhaktau tu smaha. We want to get to that rule 134, so we can stop the itsanya of the sa, so we don't lose it. But in order to get to 134, we have to define what is vibhakti. So unless we define what is vibhakti, we will not be able to use 134. Na vibhaktau tu smaha cannot be used until we know what vibhakti is. So this is how the Siddhanta Kaumudi is composed by Bhattacharya Dikshita. So he takes exactly what you need right now, without worrying about all the other 4,000 rules, So Bhattacharya Dikshita, he takes it, that was his greatness. He revolutionized the entire science of grammar, was revolutionized by him, because he composed Siddhanta Kaumudi has now actually almost, in a sense, overtaken the Ashtadhyayi itself, which is not a good thing. But people don't look at the Ashtadhyayi anymore. They only look at Siddhanta Kaumudi, which is a very dangerous thing to do. Then you lose the Ashtadhyayi sequence. But Siddhanta Kaumudi is only about 500 years old. It's not that old, but it is very, very useful. If you want to derive Rama Shabda, you don't have to look at all 4,000 rules. Just come to the Siddhanta Kaumudi page, and there you got it. You got what you need. But so what the Kaumudi needs is to use the sutra na vibhaktau tasmaha. But for that, he has to first define what is vibhakti. So that is done in 14104, vibhaktischa. Vibhaktischa says that not only the sups, but the things are also called vibhakti. So these two together, this is also kind of an eye-opener for us, because now when we say vibhakti, we mean only pratama, ditya, ditya, we mean only those vibhakti, only sups only we mean. But according to Panini, according to Ashtadhyayi, is that not only the sup endings, but also the 18 things, the verbal endings also, they're called vibhakti. So suptingo vibhakti sanyaustaha, these two are called vibhaktis. So those 21 sup endings and the 18 thing endings, they each get designation of vibhakti. So of course right now we consider about the sup endings only, but even that, because this rule, the vibhaktau tusmaha, will apply equally when you look at the thing endings also. When you do the verbal forms, we will have to use the same rule, the vibhaktau tusmaha. For example, let me give a quick Gita example of Tingantas, where we need this rule, the vibhaktau tusmaha. If you look at the dual ending, let's see, let's go to the 16th chapter. Let's go to let's see. No, let's go to the 14th chapter. Yeah, okay. Let's go to the 14th chapter, and you'll see the form bhavato jnana, which is bhavataha. That form bhavatas is a dual form, where the ending tas is a verbal ending. Okay, here it is. I think it's this one here. Okay. So shloka number 17. See, pramado moho tamaso bhavato jnanameva cha. So pramada and moha come from the tamo gudaha. This word bhavataha, that bhavataha is the ending tas. That is a tinganta ending. This is one of the tingantas. There also we don't want to lose that sakara ending over there. So there also is the tinganta also get the name of vibhakti, and therefore that ending sakara of the ending of the affix tas is not lost, because of na vibhaktau tu smaha. So the same rule applies for these tingantas and subantas, because both of them are called vibhakti. So this is, you should bear this in mind, that this in grammar the tingantas also are called vibhaktis. So okay, so but right now we have this, we are dealing with this affix just. So then what does this rule say? Na vibhaktau tu smaha vibhaktisthaha ta varga sakara makaraha na itaha. So if you have a letter of the ta vargaha, tata dadhana, or the sakara or makara, which are part of a vibhakti, again vibhakti means soup or thing, then that does not become in its letter. So when we have Pandava plus jas, that ending sakara of jas is not in its letter. So now after doing all of that, we have been able to just retain this Rama plus, make it Rama plus us. Rama plus us. Okay. Now what rules can we apply? We can first, of course, apply our rule, the Akasavani Dirghaha. Akasavani Dirghaha, that comes for application. Now, but what happens is that Akasavani Dirghaha actually is going to be overruled by another rule which we have not seen so far. It's called Atogune. I think we have not seen, I don't believe we have seen that rule so far. Atogune. Now, why have we not seen that rule so far? Because if it's a Sandhi rule, we already talked about Sandhi rules. Then why have we not seen the rule Atogune? The reason is that Atogune only applies when you have a non-padanta akara. So far we have seen the padanta sandhi rules only we have covered in detail. We have not looked at the non-padanta rules, because when we did padacheda of the Gita, we did not need rules which are non-padanta. Inside the pada we have not gone there yet. We are only beginning that study of going inside the pada, inside the word. So even Akasami Dirgha doesn't say anything about padanta or non-padanta. It's a general rule. As long as you have ak plus ak, you do the Savana Dirgha as the ekadeshaha. But this Atogune, which comes in 6.1, in the same Pura Parayoha Adhikara. It's very important Adhikara. I think you can understand that Adhikara of Eka Pura Parayoho is the important Adhikara, which is 6184 Adhikara, which is Eka Pura Parayoho. And in that we have another rule which says Atogune. Atogune is 6197. What that says is that if you have a non-padanta akara, which we do have right now, because we're looking at this as a form Rama plus us. So this akara of Rama, this, so maybe I'll do it like this. Maybe I'll put it here like that as Ram plus plus us. Okay, that's what we have. Us. Okay. So this akara of Rama is non-padanta, because suptingantam padam is the whole. This whole thing is going to be a padam, suptingantam padam. So this is a non-padanta akara. If you have that, it is followed by a letter which has the guna sanya. The guna. What is guna? Adeng guna. So O, A, O are designated as guna letters. Adeng guna. Then what happens is that between the two of these, there is an ekadesha of that param, the param which is the guna letter. So the guna letter becomes the ekadesha. So we will be stuck with between this and this we would have had a single substitute of that second by 6197. So 6197 would have overruled our rule Akastavani Dirghaha. So 6197 would have overruled, does overrule. So overrules 61 our Akastavani Dirgha. So because you might ask, why can't we just use the Akastavani Dirgha and be done with it? Why do we need to go to all this Pratama Purva Savarna, Pratama Yoha Purva Savarna and all that? Because the Akasami Dirgha will not do the job. So it will be overruled by this Atogune. Atogune will overrule that. So this 61101 would have been overruled by this 6197, 611097. So now that those two have been overruled, but then we have this rule 61102, which says Pratamayoho Purva Savarnaha. Pratamayoho Purva Savarnaha. So that finally holds the day, and we get the form the Ramaha. So finally, what works for us is or what should be applied is the. Okay, now I'll just mention one more thing, is that in case you're thinking about it, is So use the 61102 is to be used. The Pratamayoha Purva Savarna is to be used. 61102 Pratamayoha Purva Savarna to get Ramaha. And of course, then you do the Sasajusho Ruho Karavasana Visajaniha that we can use now. The question is that why did 6197 also not overrule 61102? Because we just said that 6197 overrules 61101. But then, why it also doesn't overrule 61102 also? What is the reason for that? The reason for that is, without going into too much detail, is that when you have an apavada like that 6197, it will generally overrule only the immediately following rule, not something which is far away. See? So this 6197, there is a paribhasha for that. The atogune overruled the akastamani dirgha, it overruled. But it is not going to overrule the pratamayaho purva savarnaha, because it cannot overrule, it will overrule only the anantara vidhi bhadyate. Then the next rule only will be overruled, not something which is far away. So 6197, because what's happening is that we have 6197 and the pratamayaho purva savarnaha and both coming for competition again. Between the and the we have the atogune would have done the ekadesha of the second only one will be left behind, which is not the correct form. Pratamayaho purva savarna would have done the correct form by giving us the purva savarna as the ekadesha. Now the 6197 already overruled 61101, so it has done its job. It is not going to overrule further rules which are coming after, specific rules coming after that. So that is a, in a nutshell. Anyway, don't worry about it too much. We don't understand this right now. But the atogune does not overrule pratamayoha purva savarnaha. It doesn't overrule that. So we come to Ramaha. So that's the second form. So just go through it one more time. We had Rama plus jas. We did apply the rule chutu to make the j as an it. Tasya lopaha. We got us. Even the sa would have been an it by halantyam. But we use the sutram na vibhakta utsmaha. So we use 134. We'll put that in the document. So 134 is the 134 stops the it's sanya for the ending. It's sanya for the ending sound. So that's what we had, and then we talked about this akasami dirgha, which rule that we already know. Ato gune 6197 overrules that. Finally, we use the pratamayaho purva savarnaha, and we get the form Ramaha. Now, one more thing is that how about this rule nadichi? Didn't come into play. Did not come into play because nadichi only happens when the vibhakti is the ijadi vibhakti, ijadi. Now, what we have is the vibhakti is just, so it's beginning with akara. Akara is not in each letter. So the nad ichi could not stop the pratamayaho purva savarnaha, nad ichi. So nad ichi will not come into play in this case because check the conditions. We do have the ad, the varna is preceding, but then we have the akara following. It's not in each letter. So nad ichi will not stop the pratamayaho purva savarnaha in the case of the Rama plus jas because ich is not there. We have the akara of us is there. Okay, so we got Ramaha. Now, as I said, we have to go through all these same steps, no matter what pradipadikam you have. So tomorrow, when we talk about, or next time, or whenever we talk about Hari or Guru or Nadi, we'll go through all these same steps. We have to apply our sandhi rule that we know, then come to the specific rules. Particularly, the pratamayaho purva savarna is the one that we have to apply, and look at that and see if that you know. So whenever you are in the prathama dvitiya vibhakti, which is the ajadi vibhakti, and the pradipadikam ends in an ak letter, then you have to check the pratamayaho purva savarnaha. Because that's a special rule which many people don't know. That's the one that is you have to keep an eye on, and see if that is stopped by something, or whether it prevails. So that gets the form Ramaha. Now the next thing that we're doing is deriving the vocative form, the address form, vocative form, which Pani calls sambuddhi. That is defined in 2.3.49. Actually, as I mentioned to you, 2.3 of Ashtadhyayi, the section where Panini defines, which vibhaktis to use in what meanings, in what senses. So there he defines the term sambuddhihi. Ekavachanam sambuddhihi. So ekavachanam sambuddhi says that when you sambodhane prathamayaha ekavachanam sambuddhi sanyam syat. So the same prathama vibhakti, when you use the ekavachanam to address somebody, then that gets the special name sambuddhi. So sambuddhi is a technical term defined by Panini. Sambodhanam is a generic term that we use. Sambuddhi also could have been a generic term, but now it's become a special term. It is now a technical term. And as I said to you, the moment Panini defines the technical term, he has to use it somewhere. He has to use it. So notice that only the ekavachanam gets the sambuddhi sanya, not the dvivachanam or bahuvachanam. What does that mean? That means that in the vocative case, when you address somebody, you have to use the same prathama vibhakti form only. For the dvivachanam and bahuvachanam, they do not have a special form in sambodhane. Even in all the books that you look at, they might list out all three of them in the vocative case. But really, it's only the first one which may be different from the prathama vibhakti. It may have a special form in the sambodhane. But the dvivachanam and bahuvachanam are always the same forms for any pratipadikam. Any pratipadikam in the sambodhane, in addressing, the dvivachanam and bahuvachanam are the same form as the prathama vibhakti. There is no change because Panini clearly says ekavachanam sambuddhi, not dvivachanam or bahuvachanam. So only that will have some special rules for the sambuddhi. Otherwise, you default to prathama only, prathama vibhakti. But this sambuddhi, we have to take the prathama and maybe look at it to see if there is any special rule which applies. So sambodhane prathamayaha ekavachanam sambuddhi sanyam syat. Now what we're trying to derive is our next stop is to derive the form He Rama. Here, that's what we are getting to. That's what we're trying to get to the form He Rama. Before we get there, we have to define what sambuddhi is, because that will be used in the rule to remove that sakara falling. The ending sup will be the sakara will be removed by a rule which depends on the sambuddhi sanya. So we have to first define what is sambuddhi, ekvachanam sambuddhi, and then comes the next rule which says that the even before that we have to do one more rule, because we're trying to get to 6169. It says eng rasvat sambuddhe hai, eng rasvat sambuddhe hai. So eng rasvat sambuddhe says if you have an angam ending in eng, what is eng? Aong, so a or o, rasvat. Also, I remind you one more thing is that in rasva, when you say rasva, dirgha, pluta, etc., it has to be only an ach, because the consonants do not have any rasva, dirgha, bhedaha. In fact, the consonants cannot even pronounced on their own. They depend on the ach for uchcharanartham. So they cannot be pronounced on their own. So ajashitaha uchcharyante. They can only be pronounced when they can lean on an ach, and only they can be pronounced. So there is, when you say raswad, it means if nothing else is specified, it means achaha. It has to be an ach. So the 6169 is telling us that after a pratipadikam ending in eng, means a or o, or a rasva ach, short vowel, then the sambuddhi hal will be dropped. The sambuddhi sakara will be dropped. So that's what the rule is saying. But before we get to that, we have to define what is angam. See, all these rules are I cannot emphasize enough to you, are extremely important rules. The definition rules, are very important, because they will be used in many situations going forward. So they might look trivial to you right now, but they are going to be used repeatedly in various situations. So we are going to define what is angam, and that is defined in 1.4.13. Yasmar pratyaya vidhi tadadi pratyayangam. Yasmar pratyaya vidhi. So when a pratyaya is prescribed to some term, let's say in our case we have Rama plus Su. So the Su pratyaya was prescribed to the pratipadikam, because we have niya pratipadikat. So Pradipadikam is the one to which the su is prescribed. Yasmar pratyaya vidhi. Tadadi. So start with that term to which the pratyaya was prescribed. So in this case it is Rama. Rama, I should say. Rama was the one to which the pratyaya su was prescribed. So start with Rama and come up to the pratyaya. That is the angam for that pratyaya. So angam is a relative term to a pratyaya. To have an angam, you require a pratyaya. Without pratyaya, there is no angam. So when you have it, in English we call it the base, the base for the pratyaya. So when you add in pratyaya, the first thing you should ask is that to which term was this pratyaya prescribed? In this case, it's trivial for us because, of course, the term is Rama. The Pradipadikam was the one which took the pratyaya Rama. So then start from that term and come up to the pratyaya. That entire samudaya is the angam for that pratyaya. So it's a relative term. So yah pratyaya yasmat kriyate tadadi means start from there. Shabda sarupam tasmin means when that pratyaya follows. For that pratyaya, it's a relative term for that pratyaya only. Angam syat. So why have this big deal to say that to start from there and come to here? We know it's only Rama, only one thing is there. So why do you have to start from Rama, come to the pratyaya? Only one thing is there for us right now. Right now it's easy for us. But what could have happened is that something can come in between Rama and the su, maybe. Not in this case, but in other cases. Between the pratyaya and to what it was prescribed, something can come in between. Then that which came in between also included in the angam. When you say angam, you have to go from that term to which the pratyaya is prescribed, come all the way to the pratyaya, and that will become the angam. Let's take a quick example, which we're not doing verbs right now, but this definition might look too clumsy for you right now because we don't need all that. But let's take a quick example of the dhatu bhu when we took a present tense form. When you have the dhatu bhu, we're skipping some steps when you do lat lakara when we do. If you look at third person singular, that lat becomes, the la of lat becomes tip. So let's start from that. Not taking all the steps, but tip. So tip means a third person singular personal padam ending, like we want to get the form bhavati. So bhu was the one to which tip was prescribed. But then what happens is that in the between comes the pratyaya shap. Pratyaya shap comes by another rule, kartari shap. Kartari shap, the shap comes in there. So now, if you ask what is the angam for the tip, it is bhu plus shap, not just bhu. Because the bhu was the one to which tip was prescribed. So start from bhu and come up to the tip. So all that in between is all the angam for the tip. So the angam for tip is bhu plus shap. The angam for shap is only bhu. They were both prescribed for bhu only. But when tip was prescribed for bhu, the shap came in between. So the angam for tip is bhu plus shap. And the angam for the shap is bhu. So you cannot just take the bhu and say the angam for tip is also bhu only. No. This entire thing is the angam for the tip. So in relation to tip, the angam is bhu plus shap. In relation to shap, the angam is bhu. So always look at the pratyaya. To what this was prescribed was the bhu. You start from bhu and come up to the tip. That is the angam for the tip. In our case, nothing came in between. So it's very easy because we right now have only Rama plus su. So we don't have to, it's kind of obvious right now because clearly the angam for the Rama, for the su is Rama only. There's nothing else is there. But later on when we get some complex situations, particularly in verbs, when things come in between, that has to be included in the angam for that pratyaya. So maybe I'll put this here. The angam relative to tip. Relative to tip is bhu plus shap. This entire thing is this one. And while the angam relative to shap is only bhu. So that's why it says tadadi pratyaya angam, so Panini says. You start from there. So relative to shap is only the bhu. Is bhu only. But these are both prescribed to bhu only. They all both prescribed to bhu. But for one, okay. So anyway, so for us right now we have Rama plus sa, Rama plus su, Upadesha ajjananasika it. So we remove the anubandha u, and the Rama is the Angam. The moment you have Pratyaya, you will have an Angam. The moment Pratyaya comes, an Angam automatically comes for it. Automatically comes. So we have the affix and the so-called base in English. So Rama is the Angam. Now we will use that in the next rule, which says that the Eng Rasvat Sambuddhe. So example I gave from Gita, Sanjaya plus Su, the Angam, because it's very first look, right? Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, Yutsavaha, Mamaka, Pandavaschaiva, Kimakurvata Sanjaya. The Sanjaya is also a Sambodhanam, is a Sambuddhi, Ekavachanam Sambuddhi. It's an address. So that is also an example. In the very first look of the Gita, you have it. So now what does this next rule say? Eng Rasvat Sambuddhe. Eng Rasvat Sambuddhe. So Engantad Rasvan, this is Sandhi going on here. Engantad Rasvanta Cha. So if you break up the Sandhi, it will be Engantad Rasvanta Cha. Angad Hallupyate Sambuddheschet. So in this there is a Sandhi going on for this her changing to dha in two places. This Rasvanta become Drasvantat and Hallupyate become Dhallupyate. I just give you the number if you want to look it up. It is in the end of Ashtadhyayi, we have this sutram which has been used here. We won't go in detail because that's not what we are doing right now. But in fact, I think did we do that rule? I think we did that rule. Yeah, we've done it. I'm sorry. We already done this rule, isn't it? We says it came in Gita, right? Etadi durlabhataram loke janmaydi drisham. So the rule which I'm looking at is the jayo anyatarasyam. Jayoho anyatarasyam. We've done this rule. So jayaha. So jaya means start from javai and go up to the kapai. So jaya means if you have in letter of the 1, 2, 3, 4, any one of these columns in the 5 by 5 matrix, column 1, 2, 3, 4. And if the ha follows that, it optionally, anyata means optionally, anyatarasyam is optionally. It optionally becomes a savarna of that jaya letter. It joins that family. So what we have here is that we have in the sutram, in the vritti, Eng and Tad, we have a Dakara here, followed by Rasvat. So this Ha will join the Tavarga family. And since the Hakara is a soft consonant, it's a hush letter. It's also Mahaprana. Between Ta, Tha, Da, Dha, Na, its closest match is with the Dha. Closest match is with Dha. So it will become Drasvantat. And that is an optional rule, though many times this rule is kind of as a matter of convention, this rule tends to be more followed than not followed. So same thing here, we have Angad Hal, Angad Dhal it becomes. This comes in Bhagavad Gita in a couple of places at least. In chapter 6 it comes Etadhi Durlabhataram Loke Janmayadi Drisham. So towards the end of chapter 6 comes this Etadhi. So Etad plus He becomes Etadhi. So that is when the yogi is born, when the yoga bhrashta is born in the family of yogis, that is a janma which is very difficult to get. Etad didurlabhataram, loke janma idrisham. Okay, your etadhi. This chapter 6, number 42, etadhi. Etad plus he becomes etadhi. The same rule we have in the vritti over here, which is the Engantad Drasvantad Cha Angad Dhal. Angad Hal Lupyate. So what is the rule saying? If you have a Prajapatim ending in Eng, means A or O, like Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, right? So Hare, when you make the form Hari becomes Hare by another rule. Then when you have Hare plus Sa, this rule applies there also. That's an Engantam Prajapatikam, the Hare. So He Hare, He Guru. The same rules applies there. That's why I'm saying these rules are going to be used now going forward. So right now, even though you can memorize the form He Rama, but then the same rule will be used in other situations. So which will be very useful. So if you have a Engantam Pradipadikam or if you have a Rasva Ajantam Pradipadikam, then following that, the hull of the Sambuddhi is lost. The Sakara of Su is lost. So we do have that. So, and again the same example, Sanjaya plus Su becomes Sanjaya plus Sa by the Upadesh Arjuna Nasika It and then become He Sanjaya. So, Adarshanam Lopaha. Pani defined what Lopa was, is Adarshanam Lopaha. That item is no longer seen. Adarshanam Lopaha. So we apply this 6169 to remove this sambuddhi sakaraha and get the form He Rama. So Rama plus Sa equals Rama by 6169 ing rasvat sambuddhe. Ing rasvat sambuddhe. So so that was the rule. Try to not one. I'm sorry, 6169, not 1169. 6169. Ing rasvat sambuddhe. Okay, and hopefully we'll practice these going forward. So the moment you see now a vocative case, short or ending, pratipadikam or ending in A or O, immediately ing rasvat sambuddhe, ing rasvat sambuddhe, ing rasvat sambuddhe. Apply these rules. That way you can remember them. In Gita, plenty of them are there. Plenty of them, like He Mahabaho. So Mahabaho became Mahabaho. So He Mahabaho, same thing, because it became Mahabaho. The ending sakara of the vocative is lost. Ing rasvat sambuddhe. You try to, so in the moment you see any vocative form now, you should try to apply this rule if you can. You should try to find out that if is it engandam pradipadikam, is it rasva ajantam pradipadikam, then I want to apply this rule then anyway. Okay, so that's how these rules have very wide domains, some of them, So you can have fun with them and try to apply them wherever you see the chance to apply them. Okay, the next one we want to do is the so this sambuddhi was a special sanya given for the sambodhane ekavachanam. When you have, you only get the sambuddhi sanya, and we had a special rule. We define what is angam, and then we also use the rule ing rasvat sambuddhe. Now, as I said to you, the dual and the plural form are the same. So it will be He Rama, that's the only special form. Then He Rama have the same thing. In He Rama, again you have the Rama plus Au. You get the Vriddhi Rechi, Vriddhi Prapta, and then after that you get the Pratama Purva Savarnaha, once you do Purva Savarnaha, then Nadichi. So practice these sequences. The same sequence that you had, it's the same form as the Pratama Dvivachanam. Same thing with Rama plus just when you had, you did Chutu, remove the J's in it. The Sakara would have been Halantyam, but then we have Navibhaktau to Smaha. The Sakara is not in it. Then you get the Akasami Dirgha between the and We just did that today. But stopping that, Ato Gune comes and stops that. Finally, we get the Pratama Yoha Purva Savarnaha becomes Ramaha. So He Rama, so Ramo and Ramaha, the same forms, same rules we did for the Pratama Bhakti. The next we're trying to get at is the one which is the Ramam. And this also comes in Gita in the very next shloka. It says, Sanjay Vacha Drishtva tu Pandava Nikam Yudan Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit Acharyam. So Acharyam is the form Acharya plus So that form we have to, so what we have right now is, we have the form Rama plus because when we have to go in order, so Su, Au, just, out. So next pratyaya coming was Always keep this 21 in front of your eyes, because they are going to be used frequently, Su, Au, just, So was the next ending. Is the next ending which comes, and that is in the Dvitiya Ekam, because in sets of 3. So Pratama was done over here, Su, Au, just. Dvitiya came with the So Au, just. Okay. Now what rules do we know so far? Actually, we know 2 rules now so far. Which are they? Let me open up the class. Which rule can we apply with Rama plus? Actually, make it easier for you also. We'll make it Ram plus 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 Ma. Okay. Anybody in the class? Which rules can we apply here between the and the Anybody raise their hand? Otherwise, I guess Vasu should. Karthik knows. I know Karthik knows. Anybody else? Vasu knows. Anybody else? Let me try Nagara. Let me see if he can help me here. Yes, Naraj. Can you try to answer? Between O and O, what rule do we know?
I think no,
we have to use. No, that's only if H follows. We have O plus O right now. You tell me which rule you're thinking of, I'll tell you which way it applies or not. How about that? Because we can check the conditions, you know.
Okay. A and A, right?
Alright, Buddhi Reshi requires H to follow. We
Okay,
don't have
these are Ad Gunaha.
No, Ad Gunaha requires the Av to follow, and then, you know, Ad Gunaha would have come, but there's another rule which is specific more to this.
Akasavarni Dirgha.
Yes, Akasami Dirgha. Between A and A, we'll get long A. It will become Rama, but that's the wrong form. You're right, Akasami Dirgha is the condition to satisfy Akasami Dirgha is to apply, but that's the wrong form. We need something to make A plus A into A, because we want the form Ramam to apply finally. That's the final answer is Ramam. So keep the answer in mind. Akasami Dirgha, you're correct, but that would have given us the wrong answer. So we just talked of one rule today, which will give us the form Ramam. Which
Ate Gune?
Ato Gune.
Ato Gune.
Ato Gune, because we have a non-padanta akara here,
Yeah.
followed by the letter A, which is a letter which has the sanya of guna. Then the Ekadesha is the pararupam, which is this A. So Ato Gune will give us the right answer to give the form Ramam. Okay, there's a question. Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha. Yes, I think one more this very good. So now let me talk to her. So someone else is the we have Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha, right?
Yes.
So now why that also wants to come and apply. Very good. So now we got Akasami Dirgha, we got Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha, and we got Ato Gune also. Now Ato Gune was as rightly said here, Ato Gune would have given us the right answer, but then wants to come the Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha. So now we are stuck with again the wrong form. So let me just very good. So that's good thinking. Let me just go through these numbers now and see that what all we have had is that we first had our like Samanya Varna Niyamaha, which is because there's nothing Samanya because it didn't say anything about Padanta, non-Padanta, Vibhakti, nothing. Akasami Dirgha is just Ak plus Ak, we do Samana Dirgha. Okay. So 61101 came for us. 61101. 61101. Akasami Dirgha. But then what happened was as we already saw, and which Nagar already also said, that the Ato Guna will stop that. So we'll get the Pararupam is the Ekadesha. A plus Guna equals the Guna letter, which is in this case A. Which is the form which we want. But then as I rightly said, I think Jaya said that we should get the Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha. That also is correct because we have the Ak ending, we have the Ach of the Between two of them, we should get the Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha. So now we need something to start the Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha. And that one is the Amipurvaha. See, Amipurvaha is the one which is coming even later than that. Amipurvaha is specifically only for the Pratyaya Amipurvaha. It comes and it says that if you have let's look at the vritti for that. So after following these three steps, we check the Akasami Dirgha, Ato Gune stopped that, then came Prathamoyo Purva Savarnaha, and then we need Amipurvaha. So Amipurva is a later root to all of these. And what does that say, Amipurvaha? So that's in the document, today's document. So Amipurvaha is saying that the Akaha. So again the same, the Ak Anga, because all this Anuvritti of Akaha is coming from that Akasami Dirgha, Anuvritti of Akaha is running down. Akaha Ami Achi. So the Ach of the Pratyaya means the Akara of basically. The Ach which belongs to the Pratyaya is only one Ach, which is the A. So basically when the Akara of the Ami Achi means the Ach of when that follows, then there is the Ekadesha, the Pura Rupam Ekadesha. So finally this is what settles the issue for us, is Rama plus is the later rule to all of the others that we saw so far. And this is going to tell us that you do the Ekadesha, the Pura Rupam. So the between, so what really finally remains behind is that. So I'm glad you are now getting a hang of these rules and applying them. That's very good. So this Pura Rupam, this A, is what remains by the Amipurvaha. It's very important rule. 61107 Purvaha. See, 61107 is Amipurvaha. So in fact, you might think that why did Panini make the Dvitiya as Why not only Ma or something? Because we say Hari plus you want to get the form harim. Guru plus you want to get the form gurum. So there also Amipurvaha will save the day for us. You take hari plus Iku and Achi would have come there. You also have had the Prathama Purva Savarna also would have come there. Finally, Amipurvaha comes and says, no. When is there, between that ach of the which is the akara, and the prior ak, always only the prior ak only stays behind. This is only for the ak, by the way, not anything else. If you have a word like go plus Amipurva cannot be used over there, because go ends in the letter O, which is not an ak letter. So always don't forget that also, that this word, this Amipurva, has anuvritti of akaha coming there. So you need ak plus the the akara of the Then only you can use Amipurvaha. So only basically words ending in e, r, only these. Otherwise you cannot use them. So by 61107, so the prior means the of Rama that remains in place of that plus good. So that's good. So the three steps we checked out was, we took a look at Akasavani Dirghaha, Ato Gune stopped that, and then Prathama Purva Savarna came, very good, Jaya told us that, and then finally we got Amipurvaha. So this is the four-step process. That's why Panini had to write the Sutra Amipurvaha. Of course, Amipurvaha has application not only for Rama, but mainly for Hari and Guru. It has application also, Harim and Gurum. Okay, so that's what we get. So from now on, the moment you have any Prajapadikam ending in an ak, followed by think of Amipurvaha. Like Nadim, same thing will come in Nadim. Same thing can come in like Chamu, Chamum, Vadhum, Dhenum, all of these Amipurvaha, very useful rule. So ak plus is going to give you the Purarupam Ekadesha between the ak and the akara of the Amipurvaha. These are going to be used all the time. So it's very, very, very common rules, Amipurvaha. So I give you the example from Gita is Acharyam Upasangamya Raja Vachanam Abravit. Acharya plus same sequence there. But you should go through all the steps. Apply, because like a computer program spits out these 4 sutras come for application. Akasami Dirgha comes, Ato Gune comes, Prathamayo Purva Savarnaha comes, Amipurvaha comes. So Ato Gune overrules the Akasami Dirgha, then comes the Prathamayo Purva Savarnaha, and finally Amipurvaha. Okay, so Acharyam, we got that. Now the next form, no difference between the nominative, and there is generally no difference between the nominative dual and the accusative dual. Those forms are identical, except once in a while you may have an alternative form for the accusative dual. So the nominative dual, because the ending is the same, au and out. Now very quickly, why did Pani make it out? If you just ask a quick question, is because we have su, au, just out. Now why one was out and one was au? So you might suspect there might be some special rules coming from the out, maybe Panini wants to refer to the out specifically someplace. As it turns out, that's not the case. The reason why the out was mentioned was that Panini wants to form the pratyahara between the su and the out, make a pratyahara sut. Between the su and the out, a pratyahara sut is formed, which we don't need right now. But the reason for the takara is not visheshanartham, not to distinguish the really the out from the out. There are no specific rules just for the out, which you might suspect, because this looks like Panini can distinguish the out from the au, and then he's going to describe some specific rules for the out. As it turns out, this one is to form the pratyahara between su and the out, make it sut. The sut pratyahara will be su au, just out. The sut is used by Panini. So and that I'll give you the number, though we'll not discuss it today because it's not today's topic. So it comes in 1-4, I think 17, 18. It comes the Studana Pumsakasya. when Pani talks of Sarvanama Sthanam. Sarvanama Sthanam, Pani talks of Shi Sarvanama Sthanam, and then comes Sunapumsakasya. Let me see, might not be, no, that's not here. Okay, so the sutram is Sunapumsak, Sut, Anapumsakasya. Those 5 endings, Sut, Su, out, just, out, they get the sanya of Sarvanama Sthanam in the non-neuter, means the masculine. That is why the ta is put in the out. So that doesn't, I'll give you the number for that. That is not the, so the form for the Prathama and Dvitiya Dvivachanam will be the same. It's 1143, by the way, 1143. Oh, Karthik had the number. Thank you, Karthik. Karthik had the number. It is 1143. Okay. So that's why this ta has been put. So what I'm trying to say is that if you derive the Prathama Dvivachanam form, use the same rules for the Dvitiya Dvivachanam form. Only once in a while, not for us right now, but there might be a secondary additional form sometimes. Yes, Vasu has a question. Vasu?
Satish ji,
Yes.
previously when you were deriving Rama Shabdam for Prathama Vibhakti Dvivachanam, you used out. I thought.
Out?
Yeah, I thought. Is that legal?
No, the Prathama only only, not out.
Yeah,
but
but
what happened was that when I was doing it for the Vidyana, the Gita example, in the Gita, yeah, not for the Rama. The Gita usage happens to be a accusative dual.
Anadi and out. Okay.
Yeah, the Anadi was a dual form in the second case.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's
Sorry.
Correct. That's good.
I thought I saw that. That's why.
Out, yes, because I wanted to use that rule, the Prathama Pura Savarana, to show you when it applies in Gita.
Yeah, that's
so the only one I could find quickly was the Dvitiya Dvivachanam. I could find.
Dvitiya, sorry about that.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you. So yeah, so this one I used it just as an example before because I wanted to show you this rule applying actually, because in Rama Shabda we are overruling that Prathama Pura Savarana all the time. So I wanted to, well, not all the time, but at least in the dual case we overrule it. We use it in the plural case. So in the Gita, when the example that I found was the Dvitiya, so I used the out over there. Okay. So, but now when we do Rama plus out, we have to go to the same rules, which is we already did it one more time. So quickly repeat it for you. We have to take the Vruddhirechi is the first one. First of all, Halantyam, the turns into Halantyam. Now remember that Navibhakta Tusmaha, only Tavarga, Sakara, Makara will stop from being its. Only Tavarga, Sakara, and Makara. This is the Takara, this is the Murdhanya Takara now. So this is not stopped from being in it. So here we use Halantyam to remove the ters in it by our usual rule Halantyam. So this we cannot use Navibhakta Tusmaha. This is not Tavarga, Sakara, Makara. So Takara is in it by Halantyam. Then usual steps, the Vruddhirechi will come. Then will come the Prathamayoha Pura Savarana is a later rule. We stop that. Then finally following that, we have to stop that by says Nadichi, which we use the same steps because we have the Avarnant Angam, which is Rama, that A is there, and the Au is an ich letter because any vowel except A is ich. So Nadichi, that Nadichi will stop the Prathamayoha Pura Savaranaha, and then we can go back to the Vruddhirechi and get the form Ramo. So this is the same steps as we did for the Prathama Dvivachanam. So Prathama Dvivachanam and the Dvitiya Dvivachanam will always have the same because there are no special rule. There's no way to distinguish one from the other. Except that Panini does have some places where he said in the Dvitiya, put this additional form there. So that will come in some rare cases. Not rare, shouldn't in few cases, but at least they'll have one form which is the same. One form which is the same, there may be additional form. Okay, now the last one for today is the Dvitiya Bhavachanam. We have Rama plus Shas, Rama plus Shas. And here we can remove these letters by what we know so far, which is the Sha is by Lashakvatadit. In fact, I think maybe this I need the document. Okay, so let's look at the rule. I think we mentioned this in the class before, but I just want to put in the document Lashakvatadite. Lashak, I think maybe someday we can publish the document as the Gita Ashtadhyayi document for us. So anybody wants to know all the Ashtadhyayi required to do all the Gita Vyakaranam, We can maybe publish this someday. So this we require to edit it maybe. But Dashak Vatadite. It will be what this says is that this is the last rule in the section of the it letters definitions. It says la sha ku, meaning the lakara, letter la, or the talavya shakara, or the ka varga. Pratyayadi they have to be. Anuvritya pratyayadi is coming down. So pratyayadi la sha ka varga itahasyaho. As long as the pratyaya is not a tadita pratyaya. The tadita starts in Ashtadhyaya from 4176 starts taditaha adhikara. Taditaha from 4176 starts taditaha. So right now we are applying by 412. Our sutram is su, au, jas, au, shas. This is all 412. From 4176 only starts taditaha. So right now we don't have to worry about taditaha, but because we are not in that domain right now. From 4176 is tadita. It's a huge adhikara. It goes to end of 5th adhyaya, taditaha. So we are not tadita. So atadite is fine for us right now. So la shaku should be pratyayadi also. If you look at the 1.3, anuvritti of pratyaya and adi is coming down. So if you look at the 1.3, it is because shaf pratyayasya, the pratyayasya and adihi. So adihi comes from 135, pratyayasya comes from 136, and 138 la shak vatadite. So if you look at the Prasutram Chutu, the Chutu had no condition on that. The Chutu, as long as pratyayadi, chavarga, tavarga, it's an it. But it's lashaku. They have to be which are non-tadita pratyayas only, the lashaku tadite. That's why Pani splits two rules. This is also interesting in Ashtadhyaya. You ask the question, why did Pani split these two rules, Chutu and lashaku tadite? What's the reason for that? You know, so there is so one is atadite. The Chutu is for any pratyaya, chavarga. So if you have tadita also, the chavarga or tavarga will be an it letter, but not in the lashapadite. It has to be atadite. Okay, so 138 we apply here because we have the pratyaya shas, the talavya shakara we do have. We are not talking about taditas because right now we are in 412, not 4176 onwards. So by 138, the talavya shakara, which is pratyayadi, makes the sh as an it letter, as an it letter. Okay, and then of course we had halantyam coming to make the ending sa as an it, but na vivakto to smaha, the in the vivakti ending, which includes the sups and the things, the tavarga, sakara and makara, they are not an it. Na vivakto to smaha. That saves the ending sakara stays as it is. So anubandha lope. Anubandha lope means on removing the packaging, the it letters, we end up with the Rama plus us. Rama plus us. Okay. Now the same steps of rule. We can look at akasamani dirghaha. It comes. Start by ato gune. This should all be second nature for you now. And then finally we end up with prathamayoho purva savarnaha. Prathamayoho. So up to now the same steps as we did for the prathama bhavachanam, where we had ramas. We have the same steps, prathama bhavachanam. So we apply the prathamayoho purva savarnaha. Finally is the one that we take because atagune overrules the akasami dirgha, but we apply this to get the form. So far, we have Ramas, which is the same form so far as the Prathama Bhavachanam, Ramas. Okay. Let me keep it like this. Rama plus A plus Sa. Okay, Ramas. So this is the Purva Savarnaha has happened here between the A and the A. So the last rule for today, which is Tasmat Chaso Nafpumsi. Tasmat Chaso Nafpumsi. Now this rule immediately follows the Prathamayoho Purva Savarna, immediately followed by this rule, Tasmat Chaso Nafpumsi. So Tasmat means that Purva Savarna Dirghi Bhutat, so which has been made the Purva Savarna Dirgha by 61102, just the prior rule. Following that, if you have the Sakara of Shas in the masculine, Pumsi, Chasaha, then that becomes a Nakaraha. Tasmat chasaha nafpumsi. It becomes a nakaraha. So what do we need? We should first apply 61102. Then only 103 can only be used in conjunction with 102, that's all. So 103 can only be used in conjunction with 102, not otherwise. And so it can only be used for the pratyaya shas. It changes that ending sakara to a nakara. So, and that only happens in the masculine. So this is the trademark of the masculine accusative plural. Is tasmat chaso nafpumsi. You get the forms Raman, Harin, Gurun, Pitrun. These are all going to use the same rule. So when you see the Savana Dirgha happening, I should say the Purva Savana Dirgha happening, and this Nakara coming at the end like that, that will tell you that this is going to be a masculine accusative plural form, because the sutra says Pumsi. So this you can now say with confidence, because why masculine? Because the sutra says Pumsi. Tasmat chasaha. So tasmat means that Purva Sutrena Dirghi Bhutat. Then chasaha, of the shas, the ending sakara becomes na. Chasaha nafpumsi. So that is the 61103. So that's the final rule for today, and we get the form Raman. So apply 61103. So this rule only applies in the masculine, only applies following 61102, not otherwise. And then if these two are satisfied, with 61102 has applied, and you are in the masculine, and for the pratyaya shas only. See, now this is a Panini. Now I told you why Panini put the jas and the shas. Because this rule only applies for the shas pratyaya, not for the jas pratyaya. So he wants to make sure that he has this visheshanam, something to distinguish or mark that shas specially. So the 61103 only applies in the accusative case, but for the shas pratyaya only. So apply 61102, to get the form Raman, So if you apply 61102 and you are the pratyaya shas following it, and you are in the masculine, then you're going to do this tasmat chaso nafpumsi, So that is the 6-1. You just make sure we look at the same section one more time. So what I would suggest is, we're out of time today, but practice in the Bhagavad Gita these forms that you learned so far. Practice them with confidence now. Take any form which may be like Rama. You may not know. Doesn't mean that if every word ending in as or aha is Ramo Shabda. But it may be. What I'm trying to say, it may be like Rama. But at least the possibility is there. Otherwise, there's no possibility. That if it doesn't, if it like a word like if it says Sanjaya, that cannot be the Prathama Vibhakti of Rama Shabda. If it's Rama Shabda, it has to be Rama only. If you look at the Gita, just quickly scan through this. Before going to that, this see Tasmat Chasaha, in place of Chas, right? You put the Nahapumsi. So here I think we have to use the it's an Adesha. That no is an Adesha, and that will come because of the alone Jasya. Normally an Adesha which is there, that comes in place of the last letter only. That comes in place of the last letter. Any Adesha as a default, really, the rule is that, because why did we say only the sakara of shas? Why not the whole shas can go? The sutra said put the Adesha na. So it didn't say put in place of the last letter or the first letter or whatever it might be. So this one is saying is that the paribhasha alone tasya is the one which has to be used. So of course there's only one letter here left behind, because following the dirgha of the a, when you already done that, only sa is left behind here. So but anyway, I want to also point out to alone just as a default, when you do an adesha, it replaces it has some exceptions, replaces the last letter only, alone just, unless something else is specifically said to to overrule this alone just. So this one is 1152. So practice in the Gita. Take any adhyaya of the Gita now, and try to. We have only learned this 6 forms so far. Ramaha, actually 7 forms. Ramaha, Ramo, Ramaha, then He Rama, then Ramam, Ramo, Rama, Raman. Tasmat chaso nafpumsi. So take any adhyaya, and then try to see what could be like this, fit this one, and you try to tag them. that this could be. Look at this a very quick example in the last 2 minutes only we have. Anashitaha. This could be like Ramava Shabda Prathama Eko. It could be. The Prajapati Anashita, and it is actually in this case. In this case, Anashita is like Ramavat, it's an adjective. Anashitaha is Prathama Ekochanam Anashita. Now Karma Phalam. That could have been like Ramam, but it is not, because that Karma Phala, it happens to be a neuter Pratipadikam. So the Karma Phalam, even though it could have been like Ramam, it is not. Now Karyam also is not, because it happens to be neuter. But it could have been like Ramam. Keep the possibility open in your mind, which ones are possible. Now Karma could have been Hey Karma, it is also not. Karma is Pratipadikam. But it's a possibility, it's a possibility. Now Karoti doesn't fit anywhere. Yaha, or slightly different rules come there, but the same is similar to Ramam, but not Ramaha. But some extra, we need some extra, because the Prajapati is Yat over there. The Prajapati in Yaha is Yat. So we cannot directly get Yaha from the rule within so far. So that's what I mean. So keep on going like that and see which ones, which ones will fit this, underline those in Gita, which at least is a possibility that it will be like Ramavat. Underline those words. That's the homework. Always apply to the Gita. Of course, the first look I say Sudharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre, Samavetaha. That's one. That's like Rama. Yutsavaha is not. Yutsavaha. The possibility was there to be like Rama, but it is the Yuts. There the Pratipadikam Yutsu is Pratipadikam Yutsu. It's not like Rama Pratipadikam. Mamakaha is like Ramavat. Mamakaha. Pandavaha also Chaiva. Kimuk He Sanjay also is there. So underline these. Now, also give a quick example in Gita, then we'll stop with that to show you where, it is not Rama, what it might look like, the word Jagataha. Krishna Jagataha Prabhupada. Look at the word Jagataha now. This Jagataha could have been like Ramavat Prathama Ekvachanam, but the Prajapati is Jagat. This is not Ramavat. This happens to be Shashti Bhakti. So even though it's a possibility, it doesn't happen to be in this particular case. But at least you can say this may be like Rama. And then you can apply the rules. Then what you do is that look up the dictionary. Try to find the Prajapatikam Jagata. In the dictionary you will not find it in the dictionary. Because if this has to be like Rama, there should be Prajapatikam called Jagata. And that Prajapati will not be in the dictionary, then you know that this is not going to be like Rama. Something else is going on here. Okay. So let's start with that. Now, next time what we are going to see is we're going to start with actually two rules next time, which are going to tell us that in this form Raman, this na may have become into na. It might have changed into the murdhanya nakaraha, but something comes and stops that. So the Raman is the final form, but we need to look at two rules which cancel each other. And the na does not change to na, even though some conditions are satisfied, it doesn't change because of some rule. Okay, so we'll start with that next time. I'll stay back for questions, and the next class will start at 4:30 as usual, the Ramayana. So Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Vihata Nishachara Chamu Rama Tasmai Namaha Rama Nasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittale Sada Bhutame Bho Rama Mamudhara Rama Rameti Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasanama Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane Shri Rama Nama Varanana Undamaiti. So any questions, I'll stay back, otherwise we'll come back in 15-20 minutes. Okay, Vasu has a question. Let's talk to Vasu. Yeah, Vasu?
You have stopped the recording, right? This is outside the class question.
Okay. Kalpesh, not Kalpesh, Kailashi, you can stop the recording. Yeah, go ahead.
I